let's talk briefly about three of the common paths of yoga: karma, bhakti, and jnana. Another way of looking at this is, how does your spiritual path feel? If I say to you, the way to enlightenment, or the way to being a good person, is through good works, does that resonate with you? If it does, that is karma yoga. If I were to say, the spiritual path and the very definition of being a good person is through our heartfelt connection to ourself, all of life, and all others. And it is through expressing from our heart our deepest and truest emotional truth. That is bhakti. And if I were to say to you, or if you were the type of person who might resonate with an idea such as, I understand the brilliance of this universe. This universe is so intricate, nothing happens by accident. So I know, in my heart of hearts, I know that if I can understand the workings of the universe, I can find my way to the infinite. I can find my way to enlightenment. I can find the right way to live, not in a sense of morality, right and wrong necessarily, just the sense of the right way to be in the world that causes the most amount of harmony. That's jnana. In my experience, I've found that there are many avenues, many channels. There's a lot of time spent on karma and bhakti. In my experience thus far, I have not yet found a channel that focuses on the jnana yogi. As one, I can say that that's something that I would like to share. Now, does that mean that there will be no discussion at all about good works or karma? No, that's not what that means. Does that mean that we won't talk about feeling and heartfelt expression of love? Absolutely not. There will be much talk about bhakti as well. But the main idea is, if you are the type of person, the type of spiritual being who has been living your life trying to kind of make sense of everything, you may find a fair amount of resonance with some of the things that we're going to talk about, and maybe a bit more specifically, the way that we're going to talk about them. Because all of these things, all three paths of yoga, are all pointing towards the same thing. The visualization that I like to use to describe what I mean here is, imagine the ocean. Imagine an infinite ocean. And then imagine a landmass, similar to Earth, maybe, however you like it, complete with mountains and rivers. And let us say, for the purposes of this conversation, that there are three primary rivers that flow into the ocean. One of those rivers would be the path of karma. One of those rivers would be the path of bhakti. Another of those rivers would be the path of jnana. The closer you get to the ocean, the closer you get to the source, ultimately, they're all the same. Those rivers flow to the same ocean. They may have come from different perspectives. They may have come from different points of origination, but they ultimately flow to the same infinite source. And this is why there's no wrong answer here. That karma is not better than bhakti. Jnana is not better than karma. None of them are better than the other, because they all flow to the same ocean. And if you want to think of it from a more material standpoint even, river water is still water. When it gets to the ocean, it's still water. All are the same. They are just different ways of expressing that same truth, that same love, that same brilliance. One other way of looking at it, if you're a more spatial-oriented person, imagine a sphere, a beautiful, iridescent sphere, similar to our sun. And imagine that you are a being so great that you can stand on one single side of that sun and look at it from a certain perspective. That might be bhakti. And then someone else standing at a slightly different angle, looking at that same sun from a different angle. That might be karma. And then finally another perspective, looking from yet another angle. That might be jnana. The purpose of expressing this is to make it very clear that this is not a hierarchy. It's just different ways of experiencing the infinite. That is you. All paths have their purpose. All paths have their richness. All paths also have their limitations. We'll explore several of those together. But for right now, just sit in that knowing of these three common paths. And ask yourself which one perhaps resonates the most with you, knowing that there's no right or wrong answer, and also knowing that you certainly don't have to pick just one. If you're inspired to combine action with your heartfelt desire to connect with others and be a karmakti yoga, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If your path to your heart is through your mind, then ultimately that is the purest expression of jnana, because that is that river flowing to the ocean. Ultimately, all roads lead to the heart. And ultimately, all roads lead to the mind. Not the lowercase m mind that we often refer to in synonymous speaking with our brain or our thinking mechanic. Different kind of mind, but we can discuss that another time. The main idea here is just to explore what feels right to you, what mix feels right to you. And then, once you have that answer, be careful, because one of the first things that can happen here is a little seedling of spiritual ego, identifying, I am a bhakti yogi because my heart is so open, or I am a karma yogi because I do such good things, or I am a jnana yogi because I have to understand everything. Don't use it as a means of attachment to an identity. If that's inspired, ask yourself. If you find yourself attaching a little bit to the idea of one or the other, just ask yourself very sweetly, very kindly, what is it that's making me feel as though I need to identify with this in order to progress? And then once you've let go, imagine that this idea of the path of yoga that you are embarking upon, or maybe you're already on it, imagine that this idea is something you're holding as you would hold a butterfly in your hand, without crushing its wings. Just a very, very soft grip. You couldn't even call it a grip. That's too strong of a word. That's the idea. That's the softness with which you want to hold this idea about yourself, because it is through that you will allow yourself to be fluid, and you'll allow yourself to leverage the awesome strength of good works, even if you're someone who considers themselves a jnana yogi, and for the most part, you process the majority of your life, say, through the understanding of ideas. Or, for example, if you process the majority of life through your heart, that does not mean that there's no benefit for you by putting the effort, when inspired, by putting the effort into trying to understand something a little better, which would be more of a jnana tactic and a jnana trait. So all this is to say to be gentle with yourself and to be gentle with these ideas. In our next discussion, we're going to talk about something that is very important to helping navigate along the spiritual path. Once you have started looking for answers, there's an important distinction, an important way of looking at all of the different information that you're going to be receiving that I think you may find helpful. See you soon.